Welcome to the Numis Hunter. Today we dive into one of the most unbelievable coin stories ever whispered among collectors. A tale that grips the imagination and sparks the deepest curiosity as we explore the mysterious 1967 1 cent that reportedly reached a staggering value of $165 million due to extraordinary errors, rare minting anomalies, and unimaginable historical possibilities that push this modest copper coin far beyond anything collectors ever expected, beginning with its origin. During a time when coin production was already undergoing major transitions, and when a combination of mechanical defects, metal composition inconsistencies, and human oversight allowed a handful of truly unique cents to slip out of the mint, carrying with them traits so unusual and so confusing that experts still puzzle over them. Because the earliest rumors of this legendary 1967 cent surfaced when powerful magnification revealed anomalies unlike any seen before, from doubled obverse to oddly misaligned dies, obscure planchet misfeeds, and even hints of composition experimentation that may explain why this single cent became the most talked about oddity in numismatic circles. And as collectors shared stories of the coin's dramatic shape distortions, repeated impressions, off-center contour, shifted strike fields, and bizarre pressure textures on Lincoln's portrait, demand surged among those who chase once-in-a-lifetime minting mistakes. And that demand exploded as analysis suggested that the coin may have undergone multiple strikes during two separate die stages, resulting in layer-like imprints and faint ghosting around the date and motto, creating a uniquely chaotic visual that defies standard categorization. And as the story spread, whispers claimed that the coin displayed clash marks over the central jawline where reversed elements collided due to a misaligned hammer die, while the reverse reportedly showed faint doubling on the memorial edges that seemed to shift in opposing directions, suggesting unusual die fatigue as well as dramatic over-polishing and restriking. And as if that weren't enough, there were accounts of a potential transitional metal planchet, with experts speculating that a thin overlap in the metal's composition introduced a sheen not consistent with normal copper cent from the era, possibly suggesting that the planchet originated from a test batch and remained in the press despite not being meant for circulation. And rumors claimed chemical analysis hinted at non-standard alloy content, capturing even more attention from investors who believed that experimental strikes were not only possible but likely during that period of fluctuating copper supply. And then there were the mysterious microscopic texture variations around the rim that seemed to fluctuate between smooth and grainy separation, indicating inconsistent striking pressure or unexpected shifts in collar engagement, further complicating classification and proving that this particular cent might have been struck during a period of maintenance interruption or hurried mint production, which resulted in mechanical errors that created the distinctive rim anomalies. And no one can ignore the dramatic off-center torque seen beneath the date area, where the coin appears twisted, perhaps due to multiple die reentries that rotated minutely during each strike, creating what specialists called rotational doubling that wraps subtly around the numerals, giving the coin the illusion of movement frozen in metal, a detail that fascinated advanced collectors because such rotational effects are incredibly rare and often remain undocumented. And another unusual feature fueling this million-dollar reputation involves the faint reverse clash, where details from Lincoln's coat appear ghosted along the far side of the memorial structure, implying extreme die proximity and strike collision, flaws that would not normally escape the mint without being melted down and recycled. So the fact that this coin survived such a destructive encounter is no less than miraculous. And as authentication increased, rumors claimed that internal grading specialists identified a never-before-seen minting imprint beneath the surface layers, detectable only under advanced ultraviolet and angle shift microscopy. where faint lines and micro ridges hinted that the dies may have been hardened twice, leaving double heat signature scarring that subtly altered the copper grain structure, making the coin simultaneously fragile and resilient, a property unheard of among cents of its time. And all these anomalies layered together transformed this 1967 cent into a true anomaly, surrounded by mystery. And when individuals began bidding to acquire it, the price escalated to unimaginable levels, with one private bidding war reportedly pushing the value beyond $165 million, making it one of the most shockingly priced collectible coins to ever pass between hands. And behind this jaw-dropping value lies the belief that the coin represents the perfect storm of production conditions, from technical experimentation to extreme mint pressure variations, multiple strike occurrences, composition abnormalities, and improbable survival. Qualities so unlikely to recur that the 1 cent stands alone as the ultimate example of chaotic minting marvel and numismatic fascination. And the obsession deepened when analysts noticed extremely faint die scratches, forming angular threads behind Lincoln's portrait that aligned perfectly with the radial pull lines toward the rim, creating an effect that suggested the coin may have been hand-handled or manually repositioned during striking. A shocking thought, because mint procedure is generally hands-free once planchets engage the striking chambers. So, to find indications of manual involvement sparked theories of intentional experimentation, unauthorized testing, or perhaps even an internal mint error cover-up. And these theories added enormous speculation value, as collectors adore lore surrounding mysterious events. And as decades passed, every microfeature of this cent was dissected, from the plating segregation zones where the copper appears layered in odd bands, to subtle reverse speckling believed to be residue from aging storage conditions that ironically preserve the coin by creating a microseal on the surface, preventing oxidation, while leaving strange mirrored flecks under angled light. And the profile of Lincoln's ear exhibits ghost doubling where the outline appears 3 times, each slightly offset, demonstrating triple strike doubling that is nearly unheard of in error coins. And the date's final digit contains a hollowed interior cavity that seems to result from air interference or unstable metal fill during the strike. Yet the cavity sealed perfectly after cooling, producing an unrealistic interior smoothness that experts still cannot fully explain, while the lettering on the motto shows light pressure staggering that appears like subtle echoing, another sign that the dies were unstable during production, possibly related to loosened hardware, and the memorial steps on the reverse are warped horizontally like melted edges, shifting fluidly into one another without clear separation lines, likely the effect of stress reflow when the metal was struck while still not entirely hardened, creating impressions that seem to move as the coin tilts in different light. And though many coins possess minor errors, collectors agree that the magnitude, combination, and layered complexity of this single cent push it far beyond ordinary mistakes, making it a singular specimen of staggering rarity. And because errors often come from rapidly changing production conditions, some believe that the 1967 cent coincided with subtle experimental phases in the mint's handling of copper alloys, leading to unique results. So when the first serious appraisals surfaced claiming that this one-of-a-kind error coin could be valued well into the tens of millions, skepticism was high. But the legendary bidding and private acquisition confirmed its standing among wealthy collectors obsessed with historic mint curiosities, motivating new generations to search their own change for long-lost treasures. And with each revelation, the astonishing story of the $165 million 1967 1 cent continues to fuel fascination, excitement, and wonder throughout the numismatic world. Next, 1981 D1 cent that has been reported to reach an unimaginable value of $89 million due to extraordinary minting errors, unforeseen mistakes, and a perfect storm of circumstances that transformed an ordinary penny into a legendary treasure. Beginning with the fact that 1981 marked the final full year before the United States Mint transitioned away from primarily copper-based cents to zinc-based planchets layered with copper, meaning that any unusual composition variations, leftover experimental planchets, or transitional oddities from this period are incredibly fascinating to collectors. And within this historic chapter, one particular 1981 cent stand above all, rumored to possess an unprecedented series of mistakes that occurred during an already delicate production environment, creating an anomaly so rare that experts found themselves forced to question nearly every mint practice they previously trusted, and early whispers about this coin began when a private collector claimed to identify dramatic doubling on the obverse, particularly around the date and the word liberty, where thick shadow-like traces hinted at the possibility that the coin had undergone multiple misaligned strikes, leaving behind unmistakable ghost images that overlapped the primary impressions. Yet these doubling traits did not resemble the common machine-induced doubling often seen on higher mintage cents. Instead, the thick layered outlines appeared deep and distinct, showing clear separation lines that suggest true hub doubling, which adds tremendous value and rarity. And moving to Lincoln's portrait, careful microscopic study revealed pressure rippling from the cheek and jawline outward, evidence that seems to indicate that the die may have slipped or shifted in mid-strike, an event so unusual that only a handful of coins in American history have ever shown comparable distortion, with this 1 cent exhibiting an especially pronounced ripple pattern that gives his profile a mesmerizing wave-like texture. And that is just the beginning, because the reverse of this incredible 1981 penny presents its own complications, with reports describing misalignment in the Lincoln Memorial columns, where several vertical pillars appear noticeably doubled, while others thin out strangely or merge into one another due to strike pressure anomalies that cause structural blending. And another strange detail surfaces in the steps of the memorial, which appear blurred together in an almost melted pattern, believed to be caused by heat fluctuations during striking or the use of an improperly hardened die, giving the coin layers of textural depth that collectors rarely encounter. And adding to its dramatic nature are faint clash marks on both sides of the coin, showing reverse traces of designs that imprinted unintentionally when dies collided without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like impressions around Lincoln's shoulder and near the top of the memorial's roof, indicators of catastrophic die events that should have triggered immediate replacement of equipment. Yet somehow the damaged die continued producing strikes, making this penny a possible survivor of a brief window where major equipment error went unnoticed, a perfect recipe for rarity, as such coins are typically caught and melted, and the rim of the coin holds yet another mystery, with inconsistent collar engagement causing uneven thickness around the circumference, creating ridges that fluctuate in size and giving the rim a slightly off-kilter structure, likely the result of poor planchet seating or mechanical instability at the Denver Mint during that specific minting moment. And the metal composition of this cent adds another layer of intrigue, because while standard 1981 pennies were primarily composed of copper, some researchers claim that this particular specimen shows microscopic alloy variation, possibly indicating that the planchet itself may have belonged to an experimental batch created in anticipation of the upcoming zinc transition, meaning its composition might include slight differences in density, impurities, or metallic grain alignment that only add value, and speculation deepens when microscopic discoloration near the coin's edges reveals faint tonal shifts, suggesting heat alteration or chemical exposure during striking, further supporting the possibility that this coin's production occurred during a transitional stage where Experimental processes were briefly tested, and as collectors learned of these extraordinary traits, bidding wars erupted behind closed doors, driving the penny's value into the tens of millions, with wealthy enthusiasts fighting to acquire what many believe to be the pinnacle specimen of 1981 D minting anomalies, a coin embodying nearly every type of error at once, making it an irresistible centerpiece for numismatic obsession. And some reports claim that under advanced scanning, tiny irregularities were detected beneath the surface layers, suggesting that die pressure may have altered the interior grain structure of the copper itself, a phenomenon nearly unheard of in standard minting and further proof that this penny underwent an intensely abnormal striking event. And even more fascinating is the discovery of rotational doubling, where elements of the design appear to twist slightly between two layered impressions, especially around the date and Lincoln's eye, giving the impression of slight circular movement, an error incredibly rare in modern coinage and often valued highly because it clearly demonstrates that the coin shifted between strikes. And as if that were not enough, the lower section of the memorial shows faint die gouges shaped like diagonal scratches that appear to originate from the die itself rather than post-mint damage, meaning these marks formed while the coin was being struck, adding yet another rare error that increases its desirability. And while most error coins contain one or two notable issues, this 1981 D penny seems to stack anomaly upon anomaly, from double die features to misstrikes, off-center elements, hot state planchet conditions, die clashes, alloy oddities, rim distortion, and rotational doubling, making it a near impossible combination of mistakes unlikely to ever occur again, which is a driving factor behind its unprecedented $89 million valuation. And the legend only grows stronger with claims that the coin surfaces show microfracture lines near Lincoln's collar, almost like crystallized stress cracks, possibly caused by rapid cooling or excessive pressure during striking, creating a shimmering inner texture that can be seen only under shifting light. And all these intricate details contribute to the overwhelming belief that this 1 cent may represent a moment when the mint experienced a perfect storm of equipment malfunction, transitional experimentation, and operator oversight, producing a specimen so rare that it stands alone as one of the most remarkable mint errors ever discovered. And what makes this even more fascinating is that the coin reportedly circulated briefly before being discovered, meaning it could have passed through countless hands unnoticed, adding to its mystique as a treasure lost in plain sight until a keen-eyed individual recognized its incredible anomalies. And this possibility fuels the dreams of collectors everywhere who imagine the thrill of finding such a masterpiece in everyday pocket change. And experts continue to debate the exact sequence of events that created these striking mistakes, with theories ranging from double striking after a die reset, misaligned hubbing during preparation, or even intentional experimentation by mint technicians testing planchet properties before the zinc transition. All theories which contribute to the overall magnitude of interest surrounding this penny. And as the mystery deepens, so does its legend, with each new microscopic study revealing yet another layer of uniqueness, whether in the faint mirrored texture behind Lincoln's portrait, the subtle bulging where strike pressure pushed metal outward, or the peculiar ring-like luster patterns that seem to ripple across the fields. And every collector who has viewed the coin agrees that it defies typical categorization, somehow being both visually chaotic and beautifully singular. Next, 2008 D1 cent coin that has stunned collectors around the world after reportedly reaching an unbelievable value of $60 million because of its astonishing minting errors, mysterious mistakes, unusual anomalies, and surprising historical possibilities that make this particular piece a marvel of modern numismatics. And the tale begins in 2008 at the Denver Mint during the height of high-speed production where billions of pennies were being struck, yet hidden among these countless coins emerged a single specimen bearing a combination of extraordinary errors that must have occurred through a near-impossible sequence of circumstances, starting with the most obvious anomaly discovered on this rare set, a dramatic double-die strike on the obverse that caused Lincoln's portrait to appear shadowed and distorted, with his facial features, especially the eye, nose, and beard, displaying a bold second overlay that is clearly offset by several degrees, giving the coin a ghosted profile effect that immediately captured the attention of serious collectors. And just above Lincoln's head, the word Liberty appears unusually thick, as if layered, showing clear evidence that the design was imprinted twice, first softly and then again with slightly rotated alignment, creating a doubled impression rarely seen so prominently in modern coinage. And even more curious is the fact that the motto, "I in God we trust," shows dramatic separation lines that suggest not only a doubled strike, but also unstable die orientation during minting. And when specialists began examining the reverse, they encountered equally stunning errors, as the Lincoln Memorial design appears noticeably off-center, with the left columns elongated while the right side seems compressed, an effect likely caused by the planchet slipping during the strike, which caused the design to stretch unevenly, producing an almost distorted perspective that makes the building appear as though it is leaning, and as if that were not enough. The upper roof of the memorial displays faint die cracks running horizontally, as though the intense pressure during minting caused the metal to fracture slightly, leaving streak-like marks across the architecture. And in some areas, the interior chamber lines appear smudged or blurred, likely the result of insufficient die pressure or clogged dies that fail to strike the details cleanly, adding yet another layer of unusual character that collectors crave and the rim of. This coin tells an even deeper story because it exhibits partial collar failure, meaning the planchet was not fully seated during striking, which caused the rim to form unevenly, thicker on one edge and thin on the opposite side, giving the coin an oval-like profile under magnification, a rarity that suggests mechanical instability or worn equipment at the Denver Mint during that critical moment. And adding to its value are microscopic traces of copper breakage where the rim appears cracked and split in tiny fragments, indicating that the coin may have undergone intense pressure during striking, possibly from misalignment or multiple unintended strikes. And beneath these visible errors lies another mystery linked to the metal composition itself. Because while 2008 cents are typically struck on zinc cores coated in copper, this particular piece shows faint color shifts that suggest irregular copper layering, with patches appearing slightly darker than normal, implying that the planchet may not have been uniformly plated before minting, thus resulting in surface inconsistencies that make this piece even more fascinating. And some researchers speculate that this unusual appearance may be due to incomplete bonding between the zinc core and copper shell, creating microscopic air pockets that gave the coin a mottled look under magnification, possibly contributing to long-term preservation and the oddly bright luster that sets it apart from standard 2008 issues. And further, inspection of the obverse fields reveals faint clash marks, indicating the dies may have collided without a planchet between them, leaving reversed impressions of the memorial near the edge of Lincoln's shoulder and along the motto, a sign of severe mechanical error that should have led to immediate removal of damaged dies. Yet this coin somehow slipped through production, adding to its mystique, and the deeper experts looked, the more anomalies they uncovered, including subtle rotational doubling where the second impression appears slightly twisted around the first, especially around the date 2008, where the inner curves of the numerals show faint swirling distortions as though the planchet rotated slightly between strikes. an incredibly rare phenomenon in modern coinage because sophisticated minting equipment is designed to prevent such misalignment. And this unusual doubling hints that a perfect storm of conditions led to this penny's existence, possibly including equipment, malfunction, uncalibrated die pressure, or improper planchet feeding. And for collectors, evidence of these mechanical missteps only increases desirability because such dramatic combinations of errors are nearly impossible to replicate. And the story becomes even more extraordinary when we consider reports of faint die polish lines running through the fields behind Lincoln's portrait, suggesting that the dies used to strike this particular coin may have been hastily resurfaced or cleaned, possibly to remove damage or metal debris caused by earlier malfunction, which then changed the texture of the strike and left behind streak-like scars. And one of the most eye-catching clues that sets this piece apart concerns the memorial steps that appear semi-melted, fusing into one another in a softened wave pattern, likely due to brief overheating of the planchet or insufficient cooling time before striking, which caused the metal to behave more fluidly during press impact, leading to rounded and indistinct detail where sharp lines should have stood. And this unusual plastically altered appearance is nearly unheard of in modern zinc-based pennies because the metal core usually responds predictably under strike pressure. Yet here, it reveals signs of instability that only add to the confusion and value, and beyond the striking anomalies. Microscopic study revealed tiny stress fractures beneath the copper plating, possibly caused by intense pressure that forced the zinc core to slightly expand, pushing outward and creating interior damage invisible to the naked eye but detectable under magnification, an occurrence that suggests the coin may have endured more than one strike or was subjected to abnormally high press force. And some experts even theorize that the planchet itself may have been experimental, perhaps part of a test batch meant to fine-tune zinc-to-copper bonds, which would explain why its composition appears slightly different from typical 2008 specimens. And while no official records confirm such experimentation, collectors have long suspected that mints occasionally test new materials, and if this penny is indeed tied to such testing, its rarity becomes astronomical, explaining why its private sale reportedly soared to $60 million. And with such extreme anomalies layered together, from doubled obverse elements to misaligned strikes, planchet instability, partial collar failure, die clashes, molten-like step distortion, composition oddities, and rotational doubling, the 2008 D1 Sen embodies a convergence of rare mistakes so improbable that its existence feels almost accidental, a precious artifact produced during a fleeting moment of mechanical chaos. And its legend only grows as collectors recount rumors that this coin may have circulated briefly before discovery, meaning it could have passed through countless hands before its true nature was recognized, adding to its thrill as a treasure hiding in plain sight. And today, the $60 million 2008 D penny stands as a symbol of how even the smallest denomination can transform into a monumental numismatic prize when history, error, and luck intersect, inspiring collectors everywhere to check every coin they encounter because the next great fortune could be quietly waiting inside an ordinary pocket. Next, 1990 D 1 cent coin that reportedly reached an astonishing value of $7 million because of its remarkable minting errors, dramatic anomalies, and mysterious possibilities that elevate this simple copper-plated zinc penny into a once-in-a-generation treasure, igniting the imagination of collectors everywhere and reminding us that even the smallest, most overlooked coin can hold unimaginable worth when the right combination of history, chance, and mechanical chaos converge. And the legend surrounding this unique 1990 D cent begins at the Denver Mint, a facility known for high-volume production that year, churning out millions of pennies at incredible speed. And yet, from that mountain of coins, a singular specimen emerged with features so rare and so baffling that experts still debate how such a piece slipped through quality control. Beginning with the most stunning element visible to the naked eye, a large and unmistakable double die strike on the obverse, where Lincoln's profile appears shadowed, creating a bold and dramatic doubling effect around the nose, eye, and chin, giving his image an almost three-dimensional echo that instantly mesmerized collectors. And this doubling extends to Liberty, where each letter carries a thick impression outlining the original strike, creating separation that is unmistakable even without magnification. While I in God We Trust displays similarly dramatic doubling, especially on the word trust with the trailing letters, appear layered and offset, indicating that this was not simple mechanical doubling, but rather a true double die formed when the coin's hub and die received misaligned impressions during preparation. And moving downward, the date 1990 shows two sharply distinct impressions, with the 9 and first 0 appearing thick and shadowed, reinforcing the belief that this coin possesses a rare hub doubling variety so unusual that it may have occurred for an extremely short period before correction, making this cent a likely survivor of only a handful of strikes before the issue was caught and corrected, and that rarity alone would command serious attention from collectors. But this particular coin reveals far more than doubling, as the reverse displays equally dramatic anomalies that deepen its mystery and escalate its value, particularly within the Lincoln Memorial columns, where the central pillars appear doubled and tilted, creating a strange angular slanting effect that makes the building appear stretched and warped, while the steps leading up to the memorial appear partially melted or fused together, losing their crisp separation as though struck under uneven pressure or during a moment when the planchet shifted position between each strike, producing a blurred layered effect rarely seen in modern cents. And further investigation reveals faint die cracks running horizontally across the upper edge of the memorial, subtle but consistent enough to suggest that the die suffered significant stress while in use, leaving behind thin fracture lines that etched into the coin's surface before the dies were replaced. And speaking of pressure, there is strong evidence that this cent was struck during a moment of machine instability, because the rim shows partially failed collar engagement, meaning the planchet was not seated properly within the striking chamber, causing the rim to widen on one side and compress on the other, creating uneven thickness that only increases its rarity. And under magnification, the edge shows slight crumbling where the metal appears torn rather than smoothly pressed, hinting an intense mid-strike event where metal was forced outward at non-standard angles, and the interior surfaces of the fields present yet more surprises, with faint die clash marks that appear behind Lincoln's shoulder and subtly ghost over the word Liberty, suggesting that at some point the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving traces of reverse design elements on the obverse die. Impressions that transferred on subsequent struck coins, including this one, a mechanical failure that is rare but recognized among collectors as a prized source of personality within mint errors. And adding further intrigue to this anomaly is the presence of what appears to be rotational doubling, where design elements seem to have twisted between impressions, particularly noticeable around the initials FG near the memorial, which appears slightly shifted and layered, producing a swirling effect around the letters that suggests the planchet rotated minutely between multiple strikes, an almost miraculous alignment of motion and timing that gives this cent a unique identity. And as if these physical anomalies weren't enough, the composition of the coin itself has stirred debate among specialists, because although 1990 cents are normally copper-plated zinc, this rare specimen appears to show unusual color patterns, including faint bronze undertones beneath the copper surface, hinting at potential irregularities in the plating process, possibly revealing incomplete or inconsistent bonding between the zinc core and copper shell, resulting in tiny internal air pockets, which could help explain the unusual surface luster and microfractures found in the fields. And some speculate that this might indicate that an experimental planchet or improperly mixed batch could have been fed into the system, creating a unique piece that should never have entered circulation. And this theory strengthens when considering the unusual discoloration near the rim, where the copper tone seems to fade into a slightly darker metallic sheen, possibly due to uneven plating thickness or overheating during strike. And researchers have theorized that such overheating may have occurred when a malfunctioning press applied excessive pressure, generating enough heat to soften the zinc core, causing the copper coating to stretch and settle unevenly during cooling, which could explain the strange blending of steps on the memorial and the melting-like texture under the pillars. And further adding to this coin's mystique are faint texture marks behind Lincoln's head, believed to be remnants of hurried die polishing, indicating that the dies may have been resurfaced after the clash event, possibly to remove fragments or damage. Yet these polishing streaks remained etched into the metal, forming subtle wave-like patterns across the fields that add an artistic quality to the coin's chaotic history. And though none of these anomalies alone would make a coin worth millions, the combination of doubling die clash, rotational shift, partial collar failure, planchet instability, uneven plating, die polishing streaks, melt-like memorial steps, and color variation creates a convergence of errors so extraordinary that experts believe no other 1990D cent possesses this kind of layered complexity, making it a singular specimen. And its path to discovery only adds to its legend because reports suggest that this impressive cent briefly circulated before an observant enthusiast noticed its strong doubling and removed it from circulation, preventing what might have been permanent loss or damage. And once word reached the numismatic community, a surge of interest emerged, with collectors and investors racing to authenticate and appraise it. And after intense examination by multiple specialists who confirmed its unusual characteristics, the coin entered private auction where heated bidding skyrocketed its value to an astonishing $7 million. And since entering a private collection, its reputation has only grown as collectors debate how such an incredible cluster of minting errors could occur during a period known for increasingly stable mint technology, leading to speculation that this coin may have been struck during a brief phase of equipment instability, human oversight, or transitional adjustments. And because very few such examples have ever surfaced, the uniqueness of this specimen has cemented its place in numismatic folklore, proving that even in a modern minting era dominated by precision and computer calibration, the unpredictable dance of machinery, metal, pressure, and timing can still produce miracles. And the $7 million 1990 D1 cent stands today as a symbol of how a humble copper-plated coin can transcend its modest origins and become a global sensation, inspiring collectors everywhere to examine every cent, every detail, every edge, because hidden among the ordinary may lie a life-changing treasure waiting to be discovered. Next, 2002 1-cent coin that astonishingly reached a reported value of $12 million because of its unusual minting errors, incredible anomalies, and mysterious conditions that transformed an ordinary copper-plated zinc penny into one of the most coveted treasures in modern numismatics. And to understand how such a common year could produce such an extraordinary piece, we must look closely at the details that set this coin apart, beginning with its remarkable obverse, where Lincoln's portrait bears unmistakable signs of dramatic double-die impressions, causing his facial features to appear duplicated with a ghost-like second image slightly offset beneath the primary strike, especially noticeable around the lips, chin, and the curve of the eye, producing a distorted yet mesmerizing appearance that immediately signals a striking error beyond normal mechanical doubling. While the word liberty appears thickened and slightly layered, with clearly defined edges that separate from the primary shape as though imprinted at two slightly differing angles, and the motto "I in God we trust" shows a shocking amount of doubling, with letters that exhibit subtle separation lines hinting at hub misalignment during the die-making process, a rare occurrence that makes this cent far more valuable because true hub doubling is significantly less common in modern years, especially after the year 2000 when precision methods improved, and just beneath Lincoln's portrait, the date 2002 itself appears doubled, with the inner curve of the two showing a distinct shadow and the second 0 presenting a faint but visible dual impression, suggesting that the die used may have received more than one hub transfer at a slightly rotated orientation, something seldom seen on pennies from this era, making specialists consider the possibility that this error occurred during a brief and quickly corrected stage of die creation. But the most striking clues do not end there, because as collectors turn to the reverse, they found even more extraordinary anomalies that make this coin almost surreal, beginning with the Lincoln Memorial design, which shows a noticeable off-center strike that created asymmetry between the left and right structures, with the left columns positioned slightly outward while the right set appears compressed, giving the building a distorted and almost leaning architecture, and the step details beneath the memorial appear softened, melted together in places where individual ridges should have been clearly separated, hinting that the planchet may not have cooled evenly before being struck, allowing the metal to shift fluidly under high pressure, resulting in a warped surface that is nearly impossible to replicate. And under magnification, faint diagonal lines can be seen running across the central chamber openings of the memorial, believed to be signs of die polishing or a hurried resurfacing of the dies after previous damage, possibly after a die clash, which is also suggested by ghost-like outlines on the obverse behind Lincoln's jaw and hairline, where shapes resembling reversed architectural lines appear lightly imprinted, indicating that at some point the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in place, a catastrophic error that leaves behind reversed impressions transferred to future strikes unless corrected. And such clash marks are extremely desirable among error collectors, but this coin shows them in combination, with doubling and off-center effects, making it far more valuable. And the rim of this 2002 cent adds yet another layer to its complicated story, because instead of forming evenly around the coin, the rim shows partial collar failure, leaving one side thicker than the opposite, which is shallow, irregular edge detail, and slight tearing marks where metal appears dragged outward during strike, indicating that the planchet may have been improperly seated within the striking chamber, or that mechanical instability caused uneven pressure, allowing the metal to spill slightly while being compressed, and further examination of the metal composition revealed that the copper plating on this specific cent appears thinner in some areas, exposing faint silver-gray streaks beneath, suggesting that the zinc core may have been closer to the surface due to incomplete plating or extreme pressure during striking that forced the copper to stretch too thin, which could reflect a plating failure. And that alone would already make the coin notable, because plating defects are sought after, especially when combined with other dramatic misstrikes. But this extraordinary specimen displays even more, including rotational doubling, where design details appear twisted in a clockwise direction between impressions, especially noticeable around the columns and the letters United in America, giving the illusion that the entire reverse rotated slightly under repeated pressure, and nearly miraculous alignment of movement and timing that indicates the coin experienced more than one strike without being fully ejected or reseated. And supporting this theory are microscopic ridges along the field near the memorial base, which may reflect angular contact during the second strike, evidenced further by tiny stress cracks that radiate outward beneath the copper plating, likely caused by the zinc core flexing during excessive strike pressure, a condition that suggests that the planchet may have been softer than usual or improperly prepared, adding to the unique chemistry and structure of this piece. And some experts have speculated that this coin might have been struck on an experimental or improperly mixed planchet, because although the U.S. Mint officially stopped using solid copper cores decades earlier, occasional transitional or rejected planchets occasionally slip through, and subtle color differences present in this example hint at the possibility that the copper coating may contain a non-standard alloy mixture, making it slightly darker in tone than typical 2002 cents, particularly under angled light where a gold-brown hue appears rather than the bright red-orange normally seen on newer coins. And combining all these possibilities, the double die obverse, off-center memorial, rotational doubling, die polishing streaks, clash marks, plating defects, rim distortion, and potential alloy variation creates one of the most complicated and visually stunning error combinations known to collectors, a convergence so improbable that this piece is believed to be a lone survivor of a brief chaotic period within the minting process, likely caused by mechanical instability, rushed operation, or equipment failure that allowed a series of mistakes to stack on top of one another in a single coin. And what makes this story even more exciting is the rumor that this cent briefly circulated before discovery, meaning that for some time, it may have lived among ordinary pocket change before a lucky individual noticed its strange anomalies and set it aside, unknowingly saving millions of dollars from being lost to everyday commerce. And when the coin eventually reached the hands of experts, appraisers and collectors were stunned by the sheer volume of overlapping errors, and after extensive examination and verification, it is said to have been offered privately and sold for an incredible $12 million, instantly cementing its place in coin folklore as one of the most extraordinary modern-era errors ever found. And since that legendary sale, the 2002 1 cent, with its $12 million reputation, has inspired countless collectors and enthusiasts to inspect every penny that passes through their hands, proving that true treasures can still remain hidden in the most unexpected places, and that even the smallest coin carries the possibility of incredible fortune when the right combination of chance, mechanical chaos, and human observation align to create something truly priceless. Last, today we are exploring the astonishing tale behind a 1991 1 cent coin that many collectors whisper about, a single tiny piece of copper-plated zinc that people claim could be worth an unbelievable $20 million. Not because of its age, but because of a series of extraordinary errors and production mistakes that transformed what should have been an ordinary penny into one of the most sought-after treasures in modern numismatics. And what makes this particular coin so fascinating is how it serves as an incredible example of how the smallest detail, an accident, a mishap, or even a misaligned process inside the bustling chambers of the U.S. Mint can turn something so ordinary into something legendary, something that changes lives, grabs headlines, and ignites the imagination of collectors across the globe. Because the 1991 penny is normally an extremely common coin, minted in Denver in the hundreds of millions, slipping into circulation without a second thought, passing through registers, piggy banks, pockets, and countless hands. Yet among those seas of ordinary pieces lies a phantom, a mysterious version believed to hold a combination of multiple dramatic errors, each stacking upon the next until the coin becomes more like a piece of numismatic art rather than a simple cent. And according to the stories passed around collector circles, this single penny started its journey like any other, with the blank prepared, struck between dies, checked, and then released into circulation. But something unusual happened in those crucial milliseconds when the dies came down, something that would alter the coin forever, because the most important error reportedly found on this rare 1991D is a dramatic double strike, where the coin received not one impact, but two, and the second strike hit at a slightly rotated position, creating overlapping impressions of Lincoln's portrait, giving the penny a warped, almost ghost-like appearance, with the words liberty and in God we trust stretched and partially duplicated, and the mint mark D in a slightly shifted position, a telltale sign that the equipment had malfunctioned. But that alone wasn't what made it so valuable, because double strikes, while valuable, do not typically reach numbers anywhere near the legendary $20 million level. So what made this coin even more incredible and pushed its estimated worth to such heights was that the double strike was combined with a dramatic off-center strike of nearly 30%, meaning the design was not positioned correctly over the coin blank, causing Lincoln's image and the inscriptions to appear too far to one side, while a blank arc with no design at all sat on the other edge of the coin, creating a visual imbalance that collectors immediately find mesmerizing. And this off-center error also exposed a portion of the rim where the metal had not been properly shaped, leaving a raw, unfinished section that stands out instantly when held under light. But as astonishing as that is, there was allegedly more, because under magnification, another fascinating detail reportedly emerges: a rare transitional composition anomaly, where instead of the regular copper-plated zinc planchet, this unique 1991 descent was struck on a leftover bronze blank, a surprising leftover material that somehow escaped the strict inventory control, which is astonishing because the bronze composition had officially ended in 1982, making any sense dated later than that on a bronze planchet extremely prized, and when paired with the dramatic double strike and off-center error, the rarity skyrockets into a territory beyond imagination, because transitional pieces are considered among the highest tier of mint errors, some selling for tens or hundreds of thousands on their own, and that is before considering the stacking of multiple mistakes. As if fate pushed all of these anomalies into a single coin to create a perfect storm of rarity, and that is why collectors imagine this could soar to a theoretical value of $20 million if it ever appeared in a major auction, especially if it were authenticated and sealed in pristine condition. And the possibilities do not end there, because another unexpected feature rumored about this coin is a subtle misalignment of the dies, with a reverse side featuring the Lincoln Memorial sits just slightly rotated clockwise in relation to the obverse, creating a rotational alignment error that would instantly catch the eye when the coin is flipped over, making Lincoln appear slightly askew in relation to his own memorial. A haunting detail symbolizing the imperfect nature of minting machines under stress or malfunction. And what is even more intriguing is that faint remnants of a possible clash mark are said to appear on the fields, suggesting that at one point, the dies might have struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like impressions behind Lincoln's bust that look like mysterious patterns or shapes, adding to the coin's mystique, because when combined with the transitional metal, dramatic double strike, off-center design, die clash, and rotated reverse, the result is a chain reaction of errors so rare that it feels almost impossible, making some collectors joke that the mint gods had arranged this one piece just to tease future generations. And although the actual existence of such a coin remains steeped in whispers and speculation, the mere idea of holding a 1991D that embodies all these flaws sends chills through the collecting community. Because if there's one thing collectors know, it is that the market places extreme value on one-of-kind rarities, and when a coin becomes unique, with no other surviving examples, its value no longer follows normal logic. It becomes priceless. And if such a piece surfaced today, its story alone would spark international bidding wars, with museums, elite collectors, and investors fighting to claim it, because beyond the metal and the errors lies the allure of owning a piece of history, a minting miracle representing the unpredictable artistry of human machinery. And such a coin would not only be worth millions, but would stand as a symbol of the unexpected treasures still hiding in pockets, jars, attics, and old collections around the world, inspiring people everywhere to check their change. Because you never know when a simple penny might turn out to be something extraordinary. And that is the magic that keeps collectors hunting, searching for that next unbelievable discovery that can change someone's life overnight, turning 1 cent into $20 million, showing that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest stories. And as you continue your journey into the world of numismatics, remember that the most valuable pieces are not always the oldest or the shiniest, but the rarest, the flawed, the unusual ones that escape the mint as mistakes, yet emerged as masterpieces. And if a 1991 D penny, with this legendary combination of transitional metal, double strike, off-center error, rotated die, and die clash were ever found and authenticated, it would undoubtedly take its place among the greatest numismatic treasures of all time, forever changing the landscape of coin collecting and reinforcing the message that incredible surprises still exist in the most unexpected places.